Candles for hope, for peace, and for joy. Today we light the fourth candle, the candle of love. With this flame, we signify the love of God that surrounds and fills us at all times. We recognize in a special way in the Christmas story with a celebration of love incarnate, the love that God birthed into the world. We bear that love every day, but as we celebrate, we take the time to remember that we share. With these candles, we testify that there is no greater power than love. Love is stronger than rulers and empires, stronger than grief and despair, stronger even than death. So carry that divine love with us throughout our day to daily lives and as our strength, promise and fulfillment of God's love. We share this story and take part in this gift of love to transform the whole world.
Reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 3, verses 18 through 25. Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they had lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just as he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." And all this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. The word of God, people of God.
Thanks be to God.
I would like to invite all of the children and all of the young people to come forward and hang out with me up here on this side. Call this the chains. Hello, good morning, Maddie. We have been growing our Advent decorations over the course of this month as we get closer and closer to the celebration of God. And one of the things that we have talked about and appreciated is the nativity set that Marilyn has lent to us this year. And this person is Joseph. I'm going to be a little mean and hold him away from you because he's a fragile Joseph. But Joseph has this really amazing story that we'll talk a little bit more about in my sermon. But one of the things that you should know about Joseph is that he is Jesus' stepdad. He shows a lot of love and compassion and is a really good friend to Mary. So when she was in a scary and hard time, Joseph was the person who decided to stick with her and be with her in that. And I hope that you all have stories of friends who are able to be there for you and stick with you. I'm going to tell you a story of what happened on Friday, and about a story of a friend who showed up when you needed it. So I had an appointment in Tacoma, and I get a phone call from Skylar at 9:40 in the morning that says, "Oh my gosh, we have water pouring in the basement window." I don't know if you remember, but Friday was a very wet day. And I was going to Tacoma and couldn't get out of the meeting, so she said, "Can I have Terry's phone number?" And then Terry came for 2.5 hours while I was in Tacoma to help. And isn't that amazing, right? Because that's what friends do. That's what churches should do. And that's kind of an example of what Joseph does. Because if Mary needed help tearing out carpet, Joseph would have done that. And if Mary needed help, redirecting a downspout in a rainstorm and set records, Joseph would have done that. And I hope that you all have friends that you can call. I had a couple of other people who came and brought towels that were labeled cat towels, you know, the towels that you give to the cat, which also work really well for flooded basements, right? And I had friends that were just able to show up and be present and be there. So I hope that you all have Josephs in your life, people who walk alongside you. So even when you are panicked and scared and worried, that they can step up and be present with you. So I give thanks to the work of Joseph named Terry. I give thanks to the Josephs named each of your names in this congregation. And I hope that when people need you to be there with them, that you respond to God's call with joy and towels. And now, let us continue in this children's moment and do this prayer. Dear God, help me listen, so I can be where I need to be. And when I need help, help me ask for it. And trust that you will send people to be there. Let us be like Joseph. And be good friends to everyone. Amen. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, and may they bring love into this world. O God, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. One of the questions I've been asking a lot this week is, where does love start? Where does it begin? And part of that is because of some really wonderful news in our family. We felt Sprout move for the first time this week. Sprout is our baby that Skylar is carrying, and it was an amazing moment. She texted me, I was on a train, I started crying, and I wondered, when is it that I fell in love with Sprout? Because it wasn't that moment. There was just this eruption of joy and wonder. But maybe I thought, did the love begin when, after the trustees meeting, I came home and Skylar played this voicemail, which let us know that we were pregnant? No, I think love came maybe even before that. I think it might have started sometime when I was entrusted with all of the teenagers at First United Methodist Church Olympia, when I was walking alongside them and celebrating with them, not letting them give up on themselves, or when I was making sure that they were okay. Right? I remember this deep feeling of love and fear entwined as I heard one of their schools had a school shooting. And as I broke every single speed limit to get to them, to make sure that they were okay and safe. Right? That love maybe started there, or maybe love started when I discovered that I was told that if I got pregnant, then I would put my own life at risk and my baby's life at risk, and wondering, what does that mean to be a parent to someone who might not be biologically related to me? And I wondered, maybe even love started before then, when I made the choice to be a parent, when I realized how spectacular and wonderful children are, and how spectacular and wonderful my parents raised me. That the unconditional love that I was able to experience from them, I was so eager and excited to give to the next generation. And so I wondered, where did love begin? When did I start loving this child? And I realized that there are 1,000 moments that come together to make this moment and this relationship be one of love. And that we all have that. Sometimes we think that love just spontaneously erupts. Even love at first sight, but there are thousands of things that have happened in our life, thousands of small choices that make us ready to be able to love, and to be ready for the love that comes into our life. And I ask that question because as I look at this scripture, I wonder, when did Joseph choose to love Mary? I don't necessarily mean romantic love, and what a 21st century romantic love would look like in the first century would be very different. They'd be very confused, just as I think we'd be confused by what romance begins to look like to them. But I do know that Joseph chose to love Mary, that he chose to make a loving and compassionate and kind choice. The first thing that we know about Joseph, besides his genealogy in Matthew, is that we know that he heard two important facts. One, he was planning to marry Mary, and that he knew that they were going to create children together and a family together. And two, that he found out that Mary had already started working on that. That Mary had conceived a child that wasn't his. And so that contract, that relationship that they had promised to one another was not going to work. It was void. And Joseph had options. He had options to bring public humiliation. He had options to bring about a community that would revile her and make an example of her. But Joseph's first choice of a small compassion was to set her aside quietly, to maybe let his pride suffer a little bit, but to help her life be a little bit better, and the life of her child be a little bit better. And I wonder, where did that choice start? Did that choice start because Joseph looked in his genealogy and saw that all of the women listed in Matthew 1 are women who were women of ill repute? Women who had been either people who had been hurt, or people who had been abused, or people who had made choices to lay at Boaz's feet in order to secure food and prosperity for her and her family, right? Like, did Joseph hear those stories of those women in his lives and know that women needed compassion? Or did Joseph experience all of the cruelty of men? Did he see mobs who had pushed women out and saw all of the shame? Like, when did Joseph make that choice to be a good man? When did he make the choice that the works of his hands would not be to create shame, but to be gentle and distant? But Joseph also did something incredible. There was another second piece of that story, the story where Joseph heard a dream, where Joseph heard God in a dream that invited Joseph to take part in this miracle of a story, in this conversation that was moving along, right? And so as Joseph was resting, he heard that still quiet voice, and he changed his entire life trajectory because of it. And I wonder, when did Joseph start listening to God? When did that relationship start? Was it starting at the foot of his parents? Did he start going to synagogue himself? When did he start expecting to hear God's guidance and love and transformation? What were the actions and the deeds that he did that made his heart receptive for an angel's voice to whisper in the middle of the night and say, your choice of love is going to be a love that transforms the whole world, but it's not just the small compassion I am asking of you. I am asking this enormous, wonderful, transformative thing. I am asking you to risk everything and to trust Mary, to believe what she says, and to know that her child is your child, and it's God's child, and it's in fact the world's child. And I want to know, when did Joseph start hearing those things, those 1,000 tiny small moments that led up for him to be able to get ready to hear that? We live in an Advent world. We don't live in a Christmas world. We don't live in a world where every single life is valued, every single life is welcomed, every single person can be born into this world of abundance and possibility, where every single opportunity is laid out before them. We live in a world that is still full of conflict and war and violence. We still live in a world that is longing deeply for peace in our lifetime, for the end of hunger in our lifetime. We are in a world that longs for every person who has a disaster happen to them, that there's a community that will surround them. And so I look to Joseph's story of accompaniment, and I see that how we can live in both the Christmas miracle and also be Advent people who are still waiting. Accompaniment is a really technical term, actually. It's from liberation theology, and it's this idea of radical love and transformation. It's not just enough to be nice to someone, it's to sit with someone and say, I hear you, I'm with you, I get you. And accompaniment was most wonderfully described by Gustavo Gutierrez, who is a liberation theologian, who wrote a lot of the things that help liberation theologians not get completely kicked out of the Catholic Church in modern theology. And then also Dr. Paul Farmer. How many of you have ever read the book Mountains Beyond Mountains? My incoming freshman class at UPS had to read that, so I just assume that everyone has. Okay, so Mountains Beyond Mountains is a book about how a Harvard medical doctor chose to go to some of the poorest places in the world and give them the same quality of treatment that you would receive if you walked into UW Medical with full insurance. And so he founded a community called Partners in Health, and their specialty is to tackle multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis in places like the wilds of Peru. And to do some of the most compassionate and direct service, because he believes that everyone should have the same kind of medical care no matter where you were born. His other places that he does a lot of work are in Haiti, and he's an incredibly, deeply faithful man and compassionate man. And this idea of accompaniment comes from this idea that Jesus not only healed the poor, but stayed with them and walked alongside them. And they both wrote this book together about the company of the poor. And it is a fierce and brilliant conversation between these two men. In the introduction, it describes accompaniment this way. It's an elastic term. It has a basic everyday meaning. To accompany someone is to go somewhere with him or her, to break bread together, to be present on a journey with a beginning and an end. There's an element of mystery, of openness, of trust in accompaniment. The companion says, I will go with you and support you on your journey wherever it leads. I'll share your fate for a while. And by a while, I don't mean a little while. Accompaniment is about sticking with a task until it's deemed completed, not by the accompanier, but by the person who is being accompanied. Yet accompaniment is not simply walking together. It requires recognizing real-world complexities, acknowledging the asymmetries of power and privilege, and being willing to address these while working together. There is something fundamentally but beautifully radical in this idea. In a society so focused on individual attributes and achievements, the simple concept of walking beside one another, humbly and ever toward justice, could change the world. In the words of Mother Teresa, the problem with the world is that we draw the circle of our family too small. This dialogue is about drawing ever larger circles, encompassing us in a radically wider connection of family, from Peru to Haiti to Rwanda and back to the United States, on college campuses and inner cities, in local parishes, and in medical schools. Accompaniment provides not only a reimagination for those who work on and think about global health, but also as an emerging framework that can be applied, to use Gutierrez's term, mil maneras, 1,000 ways. From housing to education, economics, environmental policy, food security, to peace promotion. Accompaniment flips the impulse of how do we help them into assertion, we are in this together. We are connected, we are tied, we are bound together. We can envision and create more equitable tomorrows, both for the big issues all the way over there and in our daily lives. Loving our neighbors, that is everyone, as we love ourselves. Through listening to God, through hearing that angel, Joseph transforms from being someone who does a small act of compassion to being someone who leaps into accompaniment, who walks alongside Mary in the midst of all of the whispers and murmurs, who helps her raise her child, who teaches her the values of love and accompaniment to this child that was raised into the Christ that we follow. It's an amazing transformation from someone who already started out loving and kind and gentle to someone who was overwhelmingly generous, who walked with her from place to place, who took her to Bethlehem, who was there for her birth, and who fled with her when Herod's soldiers came. It is a story of compassion and justice to be present with her, where he set down the expectations and the privileges of his gender and his culture, and instead took up the acts of God and love. And that's how we as Christian people can do this happen, is that we can make those small, tiny choices of love that prepare us for the big loves that will show up in our lives. And that we can be the people who make the tiny choices to listen to God, to be present in that still small moment, so that we can hear those big, bold, terrifying, and wonderful invitations of accompaniment and transformation. We are called to be Advent people who expect Christmas to show up at any point in time. And we are offered in 1,000 small ways the work of our hands that will get us there. And so, children of God, let us be people who live together both in Christmas, but also in this Advent world, knowing that God's love is always with us, and is always inviting us to be together with all those who need love, and let us share it and show it. Amen.
Amen.